All right, what's up? What's up? What's up? This is DB talking now. DB talking birds. DB talking Philadelphia Eagles. We have a lot to get into today. Obviously, I want to continue to discuss my thoughts on the new hirings at the coaching staff position. Obviously, being new offensive coordinator Sean Mannion, and then new passing game coordinator Josh Grizzard. So yeah, I think that there's going to be, I'll just jump right into it. I think it's going to be very important that these staff hirings do pan out. If they don't pan out, it could be doom and gloom for Nick Sirianni. To be completely honest with you, the Eagles definitely made a full on effort to brand this as a Nick Sirianni hiring. And so, like I said yesterday, I think that they're making him take full accountability for this hiring process, for this hire of Sean Mannion as offensive coordinator. It is interesting to note that obviously, former Eagles legend Jason Kelsey, came out and shared his opinions with the hiring of Sean Mannion and came out and kind of disagreed with it. Didn't think it was a good idea, just with where this team is at and the talent that they have, and the fact that they are still slightly in a Super Bowl window. To kind of bring in a guy who doesn't have very much play calling experience, yeah, in that perspective, it does seem like a bad idea. You want to try and bring in a guy, that has the experience, can pretty much more than 98% guarantee that he has the ability to get this offense back on track. But it's not like Jeffrey Lurie or Howie Roseman wouldn't make this decision unless they had full force confidence in what Sean Mannion was bringing to the table. And so he must have done a good job in his interviews, obviously garnering a second interview and obviously garnering the job in and of itself. And you can say the same thing with Josh Grizzard. Now, obviously, Josh Grizzard didn't get the offensive coordinator position, even though he was brought in to interview for the offensive coordinator position. But they still wanted to retain him, so they still wanted to bring him in some capacity. So they obviously liked what they heard from him as well. Me personally, I do think this is not these hires are not just about getting the offense back on track. These hires are also about trying to do the best that you can to get the most out of Jalen Hurts. And the reason why I think these hires are so important is because if they do fail, if they do fail, then the entire thing could collapse. It could collapse as early as as mid-season. For all that we know, if the Eagles show no consistency or no improvement whatsoever, if the Eagles show no consistency or no improvement whatsoever, then there's a high possibility that Nick Sirianni could be let go. Jalen Hurts could be moved on from. Who knows? Who knows? Obviously, moving on from Jalen Hurts would obviously mean that we would need somebody to move on to. And I mentioned this yesterday is if a guy like Garrett Nussmeier out of LSU falls in the draft, the Eagles take a chance on drafting Garrett Nussmeier. He is one of those guys that, even though he did have a down season at LSU, he is one of those guys that is believed to be a stock riser, and one of those guys who will have no problem increasing his draft stock again. So it will be really interesting to kind of follow along and see how that plays out. But this is a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal. Yeah, I mean, the fact that they went with kind of an unproven commodity offensive coordinator is a big deal, in the sense that, like, maybe they kind of are already thinking about moving on from Nick Sirianni. They just want to do it in a subtle, more smooth way. And so, like, they bring in a guy who has no experience, but, like, if it fails with the guy that has no experience, you could easily move to him as the interim head coach, see how he does for the rest of the season, and then go from there. Sorry, Bisbee is being very clingy today. Well, he's always clingy, but he's being more clingy today than usual. um. So yeah, I mean, I'm obviously really I'm excited. I'm also kind of like not sure. So I'm kind of it's not complete indifference about the hires, but it is like, I do have somewhat faith in these hires. Obviously the important questions to ask are like, what's the run game going to look like? Are we going to be able to implement a little bit more creative thing, create creative things on offense? Most likely, Sean Mannion's going to ask Jalen Hurts to do some things that he's not comfortable with. Will Jalen Hurts be able to do those things, and will he be able to do them successfully? And will the offense be able to like get better with the new things that Sean Mannion's going to bring to the offense? Will we be able to marry the run game and the pass game well when executing our game plan on a week to week basis? And what is that going to look like? Because I mean, let's be real. Like the run game and the pass game didn't look in sync all season long this past season, and I mean, technically they didn't look in sync by themselves either individually. So like, obviously together, you know, they're not gonna look good. Sheesh, I don't even know. That's like putting like a like liquid on pizza or something. You know what I mean? Or like using, I don't know, ice cream on pizza. That might sound good to some, but like to me it doesn't. Um so yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens. The other thing that I want to address, and this is kind of a big thing, especially as we inch closer to free agency, is the Eagles could save $18 million in cap space without cutting a single player. Um, and this was in an article written by Mike Luciano. Um, and I just want to bring this to light is that yeah, if the Eagles restructured Jordan Davis, they could save roughly around $9.5 million with an extension or restructure. That's something that I do expect to happen. Obviously Jordan Davis had a breakout season this season by after losing a bunch of weight and doing a really good job and working hard in his all throughout the season. Um, and then also newly acquired cornerback Michael Carter, the second, who we traded John Mechie for to the Jets. Um, if we restructure him or give him an extension, we could save $6 million. Yeah, I don't think that they're gonna move on from Michael Carter. He's still a good young player, like highly productive in the slot. So kind of gives you that versatility in case you ever want to move Cooper DeJean to the outside in some packages. So I don't see them necessarily getting rid of him. Especially with the fact that Vic Fangio kind of limited his snaps after we traded for him. So I think there's long-term future plans for Michael Carter. So like I do see them getting a restructure done or an extension done, and they would save $6.8 million if they did that. And then also Jalen Carter. If they got an extension done or a restructure done with Jalen Carter, who's not yet due for his 5th-year option. But if they did go ahead and get a restructure done right now, they would save $2 million. So I don't think that they're necessarily gonna restructure him. But I do see a possible extension. I do see like them possibly trying to get an extension done with Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis this offseason. So those are very important things that must be done. You want to try and keep those guys intact. They're absolutely phenomenal defensive linemen. And the other thing too is like obviously we have defensive end Jalen Phillips, who we traded for at the trade deadline. Keeping him is going to be a big deal. You don't want to necessarily let those players go. And I mean, as soon as we traded for Jalen Phillips, he kind of altered the productivity of the defensive line. So I'm hoping that we can find a way to keep him. If the Eagles do make these moves, they should probably have about 38 million cap. Right now, I do believe it's $20 million in cap. So, yeah, we'll just have to see. We'll just have to see how everything plays out, and I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for it. But going back to Sean Mannion, new offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles, and Josh Gazard, new pass game coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. Some other thoughts that I want to share on Sean Mannion is like it's not necessarily a Nick Sirianni puppet hire. He obviously has extensive experience with McVay, LaFleur, the Kyle Shanahan system. Nothing compared to the Sirianni tree. I like. Here's the thing. Like, I disagree with John McMullen on Jacob Media and like him thinking that the fans want Jalen to play in the Shanahan system. I don't think fans necessarily want that. What we do want is we do want a little bit more creativity. We do want a little bit more utilization out of Jalen Hurts. And to be honest, like it's like, you can say that this system was built for Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. I disagree. I think this system has limited Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia. And I think this system is Nick Sirianni's system. And I think it's a system that I think this system was more so built not for Jalen Hurts, but to avoid, to avoid giving the ball to the other team, to avoid turnovers, which in turn has limited Jalen Hurts. Just the lack of deep shots taken, by the offense, the lack of, third and long play, trying to be aggressive on third and long. Like when did being aggressive become like a taboo thing? It's okay to be aggressive. Just be smart. Just be smart while you're being aggressive, So I disagree. I disagree with the notion that the system that we currently run in Philadelphia is the system that was built for Jalen Hurts and he's the only one that can, or like it's the only system that he can run. I think that's absolute bullshit. And I think it kind of aggravates me that John McMullen thinks that like the fans want Jalen to run a Shanahan system. Like that's not the case. We just want more creativity. We want more successful options. We want more efficient options. We want better route concepts. Like sometimes I feel like the Philadelphia media doesn't even fucking do their homework on what this on Jalen Hurts' experience. It's like you're gonna tell me that that Jalen Hurts ran 90% hitch routes, or had his wide receivers run 90% hitch routes all of his NFL career or all of his football career, including college. No, they didn't. So that's bad homework. That's bad homework and I'm calling out John McMullen. That's bad homework. That's lazy. That's lazy reporting. To think that the fans want Jalen and a Shanahan, to think that we just want a Shanahan system. It's not it. We just want more options. We want more creativity. We want more, efficient, we want our offense to be a little bit more efficient. And it seems that the pattern throughout the league is creative offenses have been a little bit better at moving the ball down the field and getting into the red zone. So, yeah, you can hate the fans all you want. That's honestly all they're asking for. Jonathan, good morning, my man. Happy what is today? Saturday? Happy January 31st. Jonathan says, afternoon DB. I like the addition of Gazard along with Mannion. Offense can only go upward with these two men. If not, keep at it until problem solved. Go Birds. Yeah, I like that mindset. For me, it's kind of undecided. I'm not, that's the thing is like, I think, it is a guess. We're not sure how well he's going to call plays just because he hasn't called plays before, but obviously, he is highly regarded, throughout the NFL. He is highly regarded, in the Packers facility. He has experience working with Sean McVay and Matt LaFleur, and obviously, Clint Kubiak and also Kevin O'Connell. All of these really good offensive minds. And so like you hope that he can bring some of that stuff to Philadelphia, and you hope that we can kind of execute it efficiently, and you hope that we can have our quarterback Jalen Hurts execute it efficiently and see, and because here's the thing. I think that Sean Mannion and Josh Gazard are going to ask Jalen to do things that he's not comfortable with. And honestly, that's something that like has been said multiple times by the people that are analyzing the hire. But we kind of don't know necessarily what Jalen is or is not comfortable with. That again, that's something that's based off of speculation. Um, for example, it's like throughout the season, like we started having Jalen do a little bit more under center and so on and so forth, and it was heavily reported that Jalen was uncomfortable doing things under center, but it turned out that wasn't necessarily the case. And like, there's also a lot of reporting right now that like with the hiring of Sean Mannion, that Jalen's going to be doing more under center, and so like there's the possibility of that. And like even I think I saw Bart Scott on ESPN say like that's something that Jalen isn't used to, and da 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 da. Well, again, a lazy reporting, because Jalen did it a bunch last season, and Jalen was really good under center last season. In fact, I think some of his best passing stats came from under center last season. So like, if Sean Mannion and Josh Gazard, are and bringing them in is proposing more under center for Jalen Hurts, then fuck yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. I want to see. There's some other points, obviously, that there's the possibility that we're going to see a little bit more boot outs, and a little bit more quarterback sprints and so on and so forth, and rollouts, for the quarterback, just to get him going, be able to kind of see the field a little bit better with these hires. So that's also something that I'm looking forward to. I think that if we can kind of get Jalen in a designed rollout, as opposed to just him scrambling to the right, but if he has a designed rollout to the right where he's supposed to read the offense and the defense from there, I think there's the possibility that we can kind of get him going. I go back to this. I go back to his rookie year, and it was the very first play where I was like, wow, like this guy has the potential to be fucking amazing. And he rolled out to the right, and then he hit Greg Ward in the back of the end zone over the defender, for like a 35-yard touchdown. And it looked like it, honestly, it gave me remnants of Russell Wilson. That's where I first thought, okay, maybe Howie Roseman did hit on this guy, Jalen Hurts, in the second round. Maybe he is correct that this guy does have a lot of Russell Wilsonisms to him, but like, we don't do that that much, in the Nick Sirianni system. And so like, if Sean Mannion's going to bring things like that to Philadelphia, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. But yeah, tell me what your thoughts are on what you're excited about as far as bringing Sean Mannion to Philadelphia, and what do you think he can bring to Jalen Hurts' game? Because that's the other thing, is like, I think and I would hope that this move was not only just about getting the offense back on page and hoping that this young guy, Sean Mannion, can get the offense back on page and just liking what he has in store for the offense, but I also think that it has a lot to do with getting Jalen Hurts, getting the best that you can out of Jalen Hurts, and God, I hope to God that like that's going to happen. And so the other thing too is like it's been reported that we could expect a lot more play action. Well, that would be great. More play action would be great. But again, like I said, like, you have to have the ability, if you're going to do play action, like, you have to make sure that you can marry the run game and the pass game together in a successful way. I mentioned this earlier, which is that like the Eagles obviously had couldn't do that last season. I mean, they couldn't even get the run game going, and they couldn't get the pass game going consistently last season. So there's no way that they were going to work consistently together. It's like a fucking it's like a relationship. You know what I'm saying? It's like one person has to be doing like, one person has to be in tune with themselves to bring their best selves to the other person in the relationship. And then when the two come in tune together, it's just it's better for everybody. It's better for everybody. But Jonathan says, I want your opinion. Is Jalen limited to the point that the basic boring offense is because of Jalen? No. I and here's the thing is like I've thought about this a lot, and I still go back and forth on it, but like honestly, I'm a little bit more so on the side that I think it is Nick Sirianni's scheme. I think it's the scheme that we've been playing. The scheme is so dumbed down to make sure that we are risk averse, that it takes away from the ability of being aggressive. It is, and it's crazy to me that this hasn't been talked about more. But it's like we barely take any deep shots on a week-to-week basis. Like we barely take any deep shots. If there were deep shots that were drawn up correctly if there were deep shots that were drawn up correctly and efficiently, I think Jalen Hurts would be able to execute them at a high level. And we kind of see that. It's like, for example, it's like the play call that was called in the fucking the final play call that was called in the wild card round. That's like calling four verticals on the last play of the game is a throwaway deep shot call. It's like, and Jalen in the past has done everything that he possibly can to make the most out of those calls. It's like, what's the best case scenario? What's the best case scenario on four verticals? Well, you throw it to your big body wide receiver, back shoulder. He turns around, makes the grab. Yes, AJ Brown did have one-on-one on that final play call. Jalen could have thrown it back shoulder to AJ Brown on that final play call in the wild card round. He didn't though. Probably because he was in his head too much about the fact about how awful of a play call it was. I went, like I said before, like I went back and looked at the Oklahoma tape. I went back and looked at the Alabama tape. Now, Jalen had speedsters all over the field at both schools, and he had CeeDee Lamb at Oklahoma. But like he was throwing into complex windows. He was throwing into complex routes. He was taking deeper shots. I think that the limitations of this offense comes down to the risk adverse approach of the scheme, and that starts with Nick Sirianni. Now, I don't know. I can't tell you whether or not that's because Nick Sirianni just doesn't know more than the than just a high school offense, or he's just really trying to be risk averse, and it's causing this offense to be absolutely inconsistent and fucking premature and dumbed down. So my thought is this: I think there's more to get out of Jalen Hurts. I think there's still a lot to be achieved. I don't think that we've kind of reached that point where we can say Jalen's limited. I don't think because here's the thing. Like we've seen him play out of scheme. He did it in both Super Bowls, and he did it in the second half against the Rams, and he was absolutely phenomenal. Like the second half against the Rams in the regular season, I think it was, what was it, week 3? Like that was Super Bowl Jalen. That was Super Bowl Jalen. And it's unfortunate that we didn't see it again until we played the Vikings, but like there's a lot left, to be had there. And so because of that, because of my belief in that, I don't think it's Jalen. But that's a really good question. And it honestly, I will say this. I do think he's running out of time though. And I do think he's running out of time. And I don't think that that's because of him. I think it's because of, well, one, I obviously, like I said, like I think it's because of Nick Sirianni, and also at the same time, I think that Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie are getting impatient. Um, like I said before, is if Sean Mannion doesn't work out, if Josh Gazard doesn't work out, and we're 4 weeks into the season and nothing has changed, I think Nick Sirianni's out. And I also think this at the same time. I think that they might marry Jalen and Nick together. They shouldn't, but I think that they might, which is why it's going to be important to follow along to see what they do at the quarterback position in the draft. Because as far as we're concerned, Tanner McKee is going to be on the move in the offseason. So, um, yeah, that worries me. That worries me a little bit. It does. Like I like Jalen. I think he's a winner. I think he's perfect for the city of Philadelphia. I also, at the same time, don't think that we've gotten all that we can out of him. I think that the coaching staffs that we've had have not done a good job at getting the most out of their players whatsoever. And I really hope that changes. Like I really hope, best case scenario, that we go into this season and the offense is really good. Like best case scenario, I really hope that. But obviously, there's a flip side to that coin as well, which is like if the offense is really good, the Eagles make it back to the NFC Championship game. Are we looking at the possibility of another departure of another offensive coordinator? And then what is that? We're going to be back in the same position that we were in. If we lose Sean Mannion, if the Eagles play well, and when we lose Sean Mannion at next offseason, then it's just another again, like it's just another coaching staff cycle. And maybe at that point, like they promote Josh Gazard, if that's the case. But like it's hard to put my thumb on a player who's had like 10 different offensive coordinators or play callers over the last 10 years. Like it's hard. um I love everything about Jalen. I think I think he's perfect. I think he's perfect for the city. Every quarterback has flaws. Every quarterback has limitations. Um, can we win with those limitations? And we've proven that we can. But I also think there's more to be had from the productivity of Jalen, and I do blame the coaching staff for that, and I do blame the coaching. So I hope to God. Sorry, this is a long-winded rant to answer your question, John. But yeah, I hope to God that Nick Sirianni doesn't get in the way, and I hope to God that we can put something really cool together. Um, but I have faith in Jalen. I believe in Jalen. I think he's gonna get the most out of it. John says, if it's more on Nick, does it make you wonder why Jalen hasn't made a point to ownership to call the plays? After all, he is the franchise quarterback. Look at Aaron in Pittsburgh, the command he displayed. Well, I don't know if he hasn't. I don't know if he hasn't. Um, I think Jalen does have private conversations with Jeffrey Lurie. Um, with Howie, I wouldn't necessarily say with Howie, but like But like obviously the captains of the team can go to Jeffrey Lurie. I mean, we've seen that. AJ Brown obviously being one of those, one of those examples. Um and yeah, like AJ Brown was not shy of like expressing his frustrations to Jeffrey Lurie about the offense, and so much so, as early as week 3. Um I think there's a little bit of tug and pull, right? It's like a it's like a tug of war game. It's kind of what I just expressed. Like I'm sure that like Jeffrey Lurie sees the success that we've had with Nick Sirianni as the head coach and Jalen as the quarterback. And so, you know, I think if Jalen, if there are conversations being had between Jeffrey Lurie and Jalen, and I'm sure that they've had them, I'm sure Jeffrey is like, well, what can we do to, what can we do in your eyes to maximize the offense? And so what do? They fire Kevin Patullo and they go out and they get Sean Mannion. Is it gonna be the magical elixir? Like I don't know. I don't know. There was a report this morning that Jalen was very minimally involved in the search for the new offensive coordinator, which it doesn't surprise me, but it honestly does worry me a little bit. This is your franchise quarterback. You want to make sure that like he likes the guy. If we go back all the way to the very beginning of last offseason, the very first interview after Kevin Patullo was promoted to offensive coordinator, Jalen Hurts, that in that interview, Jalen Hurts was like, well, we'll see. He's never called plays before, so we'll see. That's not a huge vote of confidence. My thing is like I've said this before, is like AJ Brown knew that this offense was going to suck as early as week 3. Like he knew it was going to suck as early as week 3. And so I still believe those guys are friends, despite the narrative that's been put out by the Philadelphia Eagles media that they're at odds or so on and so forth. They love drama, whatever. I still believe that they're friends. I still believe that they talk on a daily basis. And so you bet your ass that AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts were having conversations about the inadequacies and ineffectiveness and the ineptness of the offense as early as week 3. And so here's the thing is like I don't think that Jeffrey Lurie wants to get rid of Nick Sirianni, and I don't think that Howie Roseman wants to get rid of Nick Sirianni. I think that Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman work well together. Is like I think that they want. I think that they want to be able to surround Jalen with the best coordinators and the best possible resources that they can while keeping Nick Sirianni. So you know, we'll have to see how it plays out. But this is how I could see that. This is how I could see this going. Like if it fails, if Sean Mannion fails, and it's because of the impatience, like I talked about. If he fails, or if it's showing signs of failing as of like week 5, week 6, I think they do move on from Nick Sirianni, and I think they give Jalen the rest of the season to see what happens under the interim head coach, which I assume would be Jalen Hurts. I think the hot seat starts now. I think the hot seat started when they hired a young up and coming play caller, or a young up and coming coach who doesn't have any play calling experience to be the OC. That's the only reason. Like it's like we're not trying to that move in and of itself says that we're not trying to support the Nick Sirianni regime. We're trying to support the concept of change. And they're moving more so in that direction as opposed to like, we're gonna find a guy who can do good in Nick's inefficiencies. Jonathan says, Pittsburgh fan too. Reason I mentioned Aaron. Oh, you're a Pittsburgh fan as well? Um, Yeah, well, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers is Aaron Rodgers. He's gonna command. Like, I grew up watching Aaron Rodgers. He's gonna command respect wherever he goes. That's for sure. Um, so I mean, Jalen and Aaron obviously are not on the same level. Um, Aaron is Aaron. Probably the most athletic quarterback. I wouldn't say the most athletic quarterback, but the most athletic quarterback to probably play the position is Aaron Rodgers. Now, obviously, the mental part of it, you give that to Tom Brady, you give that to Peyton Manning, but all around athlete at the quarterback position, including the mental side of things, Aaron Rodgers. And he's been doing it for a long time. And he even had a good he had a good season this past season. I couldn't tell you exactly how good it was, but off the top of my head, but I mean, wherever Aaron's gonna go, he's gonna command respect, for sure. And I'm surprised. I guess I'm not surprised because the Jets ruin every single quarterback that they have, and it's more of like a foundational internal thing that they just can't get past. So it really wasn't a surprise that he didn't do a good job with the Jets. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting to see whether or not Aaron comes back this season. I don't know if if he's talked about it yet or not. I'm sure he's taking his sweet time with the offseason to kind of decide what he wants to do. Yeah, I'm sure Jalen Hurts has made a point to ownership. And that's the thing is, I can't even. I could say I'm sure about that, but at the same time, like, am I sure about that? Like, Jalen is a silent leader. He is one of those guys that is like, very even keel most of the time. So it's like, does he feel the need to, to bring that up to Jeffrey Lurie? Jalen is kind of more so the leader that's just like, give me what you're going to give me. I'll make the most out of it. I'll do the best with what I can. Anything other than that is kind of out of my jurisdiction. And he kind of even mentioned that in the interview that he in his interview after KP was fired, Kevin Petula was fired. But Jonathan says, if Jalen was not heavily involved in selection of new OC, then that is bothersome. If Jalen in long-term plans, I don't know. I do not know. I do think that you are a little bit right in the sense that, like, Jalen may have his limitations. I do think those obviously, like I said, like, I think those limitations can be overcome, and obviously they have been overcome. We've been to the Super Bowl twice in the past 5 years and should have won both of them. But we only won one of them. But, is that enough? Is that enough for Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie? Because here's the thing. Jeffrey Lurie has always stated this, and he has always wanted this. He's wanted a high-powered passing offense, and I do believe that he still wants that. That's the other thing too, is you have to realize the reason why Jeffrey Lurie was willing to give a lot of the money up front to AJ Brown and Devontae Smith was because they are one of the best wide receiver tandems in the league. They are two out of the top 5 best players at the position in their league, or in the league. The pass game should be flying high week in, week out. And I do think it's a little bit of both. I do think that they're on a week to week basis. If you're talking about winning, I think Jalen is fine. But when it comes to the pass game on a week to week basis and having consistency on a week to week basis with the passing game, I don't think you're going to get that on a consistent basis with Jalen Hurts. I don't. I think the ceiling. I do think that the ceiling with that though is like maybe 230 to 250. Increasing the pass yards to 230 to 250 per game, and then having Jalen run for like 40 yards. That's kind of where we want to be. If Jalen's throwing for 235, 240, and running for 40 to 50 yards a game, that's perfect. That shows to me that we were moving the chains. We, pretty much all game long. Jalen's probably got maybe 2 or 3 touchdowns out of those statistics, and that's a good season. That's a good season. That kind of that 35 to 50 rush yards a game kind of puts him at that 700 rushing yard mark. For the season, which is where he was at, with the exception of last season. And yeah, each year his passing yards have kind of dropped off. But do I think he's incapable? Do I think he's incapable of passing for more yards and leading an efficient pass offense? I don't necessarily believe so. But is he in the long-term plans? I don't know, man. I really don't know. I think again, I think that it's going to be tied to what happens in the first quarter of the season. That's what I think. I do believe that they're going to find a quarterback in this draft, and I think that they're going to take one early. There's been reports that the Eagles might be interested in taking a quarterback early in this draft. And I'm not talking about first round, unless you really have a guy that's top 3 that falls to 23. But maybe second round. Maybe you take a guy in the second round. Now, granted, a top quarterback prospect falling to 23 is not out of the realm of possibility. We saw that happen with Lamar Jackson. I think they got Lamar Jackson. I think the Ravens got Lamar Jackson with the 31st pick in the first round during that draft, if I'm remembering correctly. But yeah, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think that Howie Roseman and I think that Jeffrey Lurie are looking at all options. And I think here's the other thing too. I don't think Howie Roseman is unaware of what the issue is. That's the one thing that I want to make clear is I don't think Howie Roseman has gotten so good, at what he does, that I don't think that he's unaware as to what the issue is. Is it Jalen? Is it Nick? Is it both? The other thing to take into account here is that, both of them married together equals a lot of wins and 2 Super Bowl appearances. Jonathan says, and I sincerely hope that with Mannion and Grizzard now on staff, that more player usage happens. Nick from beginning always says offense is mainly AJ, Smitty, Goddard, and Barkley. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Here's the thing is I hope, I really hope that Mannion and Grizzard can get the most out of these players and can get more out of these players than what we've seen. Because what did we see? AJ Brown's first 2 years in Philadelphia, he had more than 1,400 receiving yards. Devontae Smith was still averaging about 1,000 yards. We had DeAndre Swift and we had Miles Sanders. Both had good seasons during those 1,400 receiving yard seasons for AJ Brown. So my question is this: it's there. The potential is there. You gotta hope that Sean Mannion and Josh Grizzard can get the most out of these players, get more out of the players than at least that they did last season, because you go back and look, it's like AJ Brown almost didn't make 1,000 yards, and it's AJ Brown that we're talking about. They needed to put Devontae Smith in for about 18 more snaps just to get about 50 more yards to break 1,000. I'll do that. I'll do that shit on Madden where it's like if I want a running back to get 2,000 yards, I'm gonna keep him in. But like, I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to do that on Madden. In real life, it's real life, and your player could get hurt. And you're just forcing things. Why would you like? So, and the thing is, it's just to the second half of this comment here is Nick from the beginning has always said that offense is mainly AJ, Smitty, Goddard, and Barkley. Yeah, but usually when he says things like that, like it's in defense of like one of the reporters asking him like, why didn't you go to AJ more? Why didn't you go to Smitty more? Like, what was the cause of the ineffectiveness of the offense? Like, after a lot, like, it's like he'll go on and he'll say, look, number one, like, it always goes to AJ. Like we go AJ, we go Devontae, we go Goddard, and then we go Barkley. Yeah, but that's fine. Like, he can say all that shit, all that he fucking wants. It was inconsistent, and he wasn't able to do it. And that's just lip service at that. That's just lip service at that point. Like, the fans know how the offense is supposed to run. Like, we know how the offense is supposed to run. Yeah, it's supposed to go AJ, Smitty, Goddard, and Barkley. Like, we're very well aware of that. We're very well aware of that. But like, if you're not doing something well, then you shouldn't have your thumbprint or your fingerprints on the offense. Very plain and simple. And so, like, I hope that Mannion and Grizzard, can find better ways, find more creative ways, find more efficient ways, to get the most out of this offense, to get the most out of these players. It's gonna start with the players. It's gonna start with the players buying into whatever they're going to bring. Whether it be more under center, whether it be more play action, different route concepts. That's the other thing too. The other thing to be hopeful about, to be faithful about, is the Eagles were like second in hitch routes this past season. Hitch routes ran. And then like the Packers and the Bucks were like second to last in hitch routes run. So like, that's one change, just statistically. And then if you go back and you look at all the different concepts, the route concepts that the Buccaneers ran, they were extraordinarily different than what the Eagles run. Extraordinarily different. And the Eagles, if you look at the play screen, the play-by-play, and you go and look at the Eagles, route concepts, everybody's running the same fucking way. Everybody is running the same way. There's no rhyme or reason. It's just like, but in the Bucks, like, you have Mike Evans running a specific route that means something for Mike Evans, and then the rest of the wide receivers. You have, Emeka Egbuka, the rookie wide receiver, who did a phenomenal job, for the Buccaneers this past season. And so, like, that's also something to be excited about, is Josh Grizzard being the former offense coordinator for the Bucks and now being our pass game coordinator, is just to see, like, okay, the fact that he was able to do all of those awesome things with Emeka, does that signify a breakout season for Devontae? I hope so. But we also got to keep AJ Brown happy too. And that's if AJ Brown stays on the team. You know what I mean? That's if he stays on the team. I hope he stays on the team. I think it'd be a real shame to let AJ Brown walk before we get the chance to see what he could possibly do in the Sean Mannion, Josh Grizzard offense. But yeah, like, there's hope there. There's faith there. Do I think Jalen can do it? Yes. Do I trust Nick Sirianni keeping his fingerprints off the offense? No. Until you show me otherwise, I will have little faith in that happening. We brought in, for example, Kellen Moore to be the offensive coordinator last year, and Kellen had like 6 years of offensive coordinator experience before he came to Philadelphia to be the offensive coordinator, and like he was responsible for penning like number one offenses in Dallas. He brought the Chargers offense to like a top 5 offense from what I understand, and like after 4 weeks of people being uncomfortable with how it was playing out. And again, I go back to the patience, because I think that this was due to the impatience of Jalen Hurts' development under Kellen Moore. And Jalen Hurts under Kellen Moore, within the first 4 weeks, when he was actually calling plays, Jalen Hurts was throwing for more yards. He was throwing for more touchdowns. Yes, was he turning the ball over at a higher rate as well? I think he had 4 interceptions within 3 weeks. Yes, but it is a new offense. You are getting used to new concepts. So if they had just been patient, it is possible. It is possible we could have seen a more balanced offense leading into the Super Bowl and throughout the entire season last season. I'm not saying, look, I'm not regretting the offensive scheme last year whatsoever. Obviously, watching Saquon Barkley run for 2,000 yards was magical, and probably something I'm never going to see in my life again from a Philadelphia Eagles running back. But again, it goes back to the patience. Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni, they got to be patient. And it might not even be Howie Roseman or Jeffrey Lurie at that point. Within the first 4 weeks, it could have been Nick Sirianni. And you got to be honest, too. Like, the reports that were coming out at that point in time, the offensive line were walking into into Nick Sirianni's office and saying, "Hey, we got to lean heavily on the run." So it seemed like everybody was kind of getting impatient. And that's also an issue too. And why is that? Why are players getting impatient? Well, players are probably getting impatient because Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, they've seen the ineptness of the scheme since they've been here. And so yeah, there's probably a little bit of post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic fear of the offense blowing dick, basically. Pardon my language. But that's what they're afraid of. And that's exactly why AJ Brown like came out in week 3 and was like, "Nah, this ain't it. Why we started to hear the smoke, that the offense sucked as early as week 3. This ain't it. So that's why I say, like, Sean Mannion and Josh Grizzard got to get these players to buy in quickly, and they got to get it moving quickly. And unfortunately, that's one of the reasons why I feel bad for them. It's like, yeah, it's like, it's not easy being it might be a desirable job, but it's not easy being an offensive coordinator in Philadelphia. It's not easy being a part of any part of the offensive staff in Philadelphia. It's not easy one bit. They have to perform at an elite level from week 1 to and I'm not even talking about actually scratch week 1. Like, fans want to see fluidity from training camp. Fans want to see fluidity from preseason. It doesn't matter if you're the starter, if the starters are playing or not, or the backups are playing or not. That's football in Philadelphia. That is football in Philadelphia. The fans want fluidity from every single player on the team at all times. And so they have to be the coaches got to be good coaches. If the coaches have a plan, if Sean Mannion has a plan for Jalen Hurts, and I'm sure that he does, we got to see it. I don't mind being patient. I've been a fan, since I was 5 years old. For 30 years, I've been a fan, and I've seen some really shitty offenses. I've seen some really shitty teams. I've seen some really bad personnel decisions. I can be patient, but the thing is we are in a Super Bowl window. We are in a Super Bowl window. And so we do have to, that is the expectation. The expectations are so damn high. The expectation, at least, is NFC Championship game. At least. If the play here, let me ask you guys this question. And welcome to the chat, anybody that just joined. This is DB Talking Now, DB Talking Birds, DB Talking Philadelphia Eagles. Please like, please subscribe. Please hit the notification bell if you want to keep up with the updates. And also, please leave a comment in the live chat box. We can get to talk whatever you want to talk about. But let me ask you this question. Is if the play calling was just slightly better, just a little bit above average, because it wasn't average. The play calling wasn't average. It was below average. And in fact, it sucked. But if it was like average or above average, would we have played? Do you think that we would have played in that NFC Championship game against the Seahawks? And how do you think that we would have done? How do you think that we would have done? I think that we would have been in the NFC Championship game against the Seahawks. And I think that there may have been a 3-point odds. I'm not going to say that we would be favorites, obviously, because it would be in Seattle, but you get 3 points just for being at home. Jonathan says it bothered me a lot that unless injured, AJ Dillon's lack of usage in red zone or goal line situations, used as a fullback with tank and I formation. Use tackle eligible play calls, limited ideas. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm right on board with you there, John, because I liked the idea of bringing in AJ Dillon, and AJ Dillon, whenever they did use him earlier in the season, he was like, he had like a 6.1 yard per carry average, and he got the tough yards. He was getting the tough yards. There was the game that they scrapped AJ Dillon and we didn't see him for the rest of the season was the game where he fumbled the kickoff and then he fumbled a catch out of the backfield, and they were like, okay, nope. And I think it was the worst idea. Like a player has a bad game, players are gonna have bad games, but to scrap that guy completely for the rest of the season, I think was an awful decision. I think it was an awful decision. I think that like we could have rolled into the playoffs with Saquon, Tank, and AJ Dillon, utilized them effectively, and we could have had like a Corey Clement, Jay Ajayi, LeGarrette Blount sort of situation like we did in 2017. And I think it would have, because of the winter, because of the fact that it's cold and it's the winter. And the run game is very important to make sure that it's effective during the playoffs. Like I think that you could have easily implemented him in, and it would have been fine. But yeah, at least in goal line. Like if you're not going to utilize him that much, like at least utilize him in the goal line. Like the dude is like 6 foot and like 230 pounds or some shit, like, or 240 or some shit like that. And you know what and like, granted, it worked. Like the goal line situations, the goal line play calling was decent. Okay. But like, and like the Goddard packages, like, yeah, okay, great. They worked. But like, that's all that they had. And they didn't have anything else. They didn't have, as soon as like, as soon as the offense stopped, performing well, getting down the field, it just didn't matter. It just didn't matter. Yeah, I mean, the lack of usage of AJ Dillon bothered me a lot as well. For some reason, they have a hard on for Will Shipley. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Like I get, like they think like, what was Will Shipley? Was he like a fifth round pick? I mean, he just like, yeah, he showed some signs as a rookie, but like he was awful this year. Like he was awful this year, except for maybe one like amazing catch along the sideline from Jalen Hurts. Like why they have a propensity for wanting to get like these backup running backs involved, or early like draft, or like, sorry, late round running backs involved, is just beyond me. It's just beyond me. Like, I get it. I get that, like, they've had some successful like undrafted rookie free agent running backs like Corey Clement, but like, if there's one thing that I pride myself on is I take a solid look at the running backs, every single draft season, and um and I say, oh, okay, this guy's not going to be a high draft pick. He's going to be like maybe a mid-round draft pick, but he's got some good tools. There's some good tools there. I would like for the Eagles to get him. I was right about Wendell Smallwood. Wendell Smallwood was decent, for a backup. Kenny Gainwell was decent for a backup. And then when I looked at when we signed Corey Clement back in 2017, and I looked at him, I was like, man, this guy's got some decent skills. He's going to be good. And then he goes on to become a very important piece for our running back rotation throughout that entire season. And so, like, yeah, the thing is like, I honestly just don't understand why AJ Dillon wasn't utilized more, with the exception of this fact. And it goes back to what we've been talking about all along, which is the Eagles don't know how to utilize their fucking personnel. They don't know how to utilize their personnel. It's like everybody wants to shit on Grant Calcaterra. Okay, fine. You can shit on Grant Calcaterra all you want, but he is a good receiving tight end. He's an above average receiving tight end. Draw up some fucking plays that work. When they've drawn up, decent route concepts for Grant Calcaterra has made big plays. Now, I'm not saying like he's good at anything else, but you do have that in your tool shed. You have AJ Dillon in your tool shed. You have Saquon Barkley in your tool shed. You have Tank Bigsby in your tool shed. Tank Bigsby can catch out of the backfield. If Saquon Barkley wants to show inconsistencies on catching the ball out of the backfield, you have Tank Bigsby, who has shown that he can do it. You can put both of them on the field at the same fucking time. Like, you can do these things. You don't have to. You're not limited to just one thing or the other. Like, you can do multiple things with all the guys that you have. For fuck's sake. Yeah, it's frustrating. It drives me absolutely in circles. The ineffectiveness and the ineptness and the inability to utilize our talent to the best of their ability. We have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, for fuck's sake. We have Jalen Hurts, who is above average passer. He's not an elite passer. I don't think he's ever going to be an elite passer. Like, that's not an argument that we need to have. But he is an above average passer. He can get the job done. But he also can utilize his legs as well. And the reports that Jalen might not want to run more, it's bullshit. There was a lot of reports at the end of the season that Jalen didn't want to run, that Jalen doesn't want to run more, and that's why he ran less throughout the season. No, that's bullshit. Jalen will do whatever he needs to do to win. But, like, again, like, you have a guy that's a dual threat at quarterback. You have A.J. Brown at wide receiver. You have Devontae Smith at wide receiver. You have Jahan Dotson as your third wide receiver, who is an underappreciated, who's an underappreciated player, and has above average speed. You can draw up deep shots for Jahan Dotson. He's actually really quick. He's actually he's a better route runner than people give him credit for. He's not Devontae Smith level, but he is trending. And you can't utilize these guys? That's a fucking coaching problem. This goes back to your question earlier, man. That's a fucking coaching problem. It's not a Jalen Hurts problem. It's a coaching problem. And everybody wants to shit on Jalen Hurts for not being able to see, the wide receivers, all the open wide receivers all the fucking time. Well, I mean, sometimes, like, you do have to go back to the fact that, like, okay, maybe the play wasn't drawn up for that guy, and like maybe they're showing a different coverage than what he's used to. Yeah, okay, you could get on Jalen's ass about like looking into a different coverage, but like teams defenses, their main focus is to throw off your quarterback. Quarterbacks are going to deal with that week in, week out. It's not like it's not like there's Peyton Mannings or Tom Brady's like sitting on fucking trees. Like Jesus. And by the way, if your quarterback wasn't ready for a coverage, why not? There were multiple times throughout the season that we saw the teams that we were about to go up against show exactly what they did to us in the previous week, or show to the teams that they played in the previous week exactly what they. And Kevin Petula couldn't deal with it. The staff wasn't ready for it. Why wasn't the staff fucking ready for it? It's not just the quarterback out there. It's not just the wide receivers out there. Anyway, sorry. Jonathan says, Will Shipley facts. I think Howie's behind that favoritism. Yeah, well, here's the thing. I don't think Will Shipley has a lot of time left on this team. The one signing that I did actually really like that they did right after the season ended was Carson Steele. He played running back for the Chiefs. He played a little fullback for the Chiefs, and he also played a little bit of tight end for the Chiefs as well. I liked Carson Steele out of college. Yeah, he's another hard runner and has a good burst. So it's going to be interesting to see like what that looks like. They obviously want to expand on the run game. They want to keep that going. So signing a guy like Carson Steele is really important. What is Ben Van Sumeren going to look like when he comes back? Obviously Ben Van Sumeren continues to be a project in the making. Played good snaps at fullback, but bringing in a guy that has experience at all those positions instead of just being a project, it was a good idea. So I'm excited actually to see what Carson Steele brings to this offense, and I honestly think he's a dark horse to make the team. It would make sense to me. I wouldn't be shocked by it. I think he's one of those guys that I think it was a sneaky good signing, and I think he will serve the purpose that they thought AJ Dillon would. And again, like we talked about a couple minutes ago, I think AJ Dillon would have served the purpose that they wanted. I think AJ Dillon would have done a good job, but they gave up on him. And I go back to patience. They don't have the fucking patience. And maybe they're justified in not having the patience because they are in the Super Bowl window and like the expectations are so high. But like you gotta prioritize and manage your patience levels at least a little bit in some regards, in some areas of the fucking team. Because if you don't, we're gonna be giving up on guys. We're gonna be giving up on guys before they actually, blossom. To be completely honest with you, or we're going to be giving up on guys for reasons that aren't their fault, which is why I worry about Jahan Dotson. Like, if they can bring Jahan Dotson back, for a cheap deal, let's say $4 or $5 mil per year, would you do it? I would. I probably would in a heartbeat, especially with the fact that I don't know what the future is of AJ Brown. But even if AJ Brown does come back, I would still bring Jahan Dotson back on a 4 to 5 year or $4 mil, $5 mil per year deal. It makes perfect sense to me. Jonathan says, yes, Grant can make plays and don't use him enough. Eagles come across as starter fetish. Yeah, I mean, I guess being like them having a starter fetish is better than what they used to have, which is they used to have a development fetish, i.e. Jalen Reagor, or JJ Arcega-Whiteside, or even just recently, what's his face, the 6'8" wide receiver that we have that keeps getting hurt. Johnny Wilson. Yeah, is he what? What are we expecting at? Why are we putting him on the field? Why are we putting him on the field? I get run packages, and I get that he's not on the field because he keeps getting hurt. But that's the thing is anytime that they want to talk about how badly the running game has played, it's oh, you guys don't realize what the packages were with Johnny Wilson and how big of an impact that was. What are you fucking talking about? What we're gonna waste one out of the 11 guys that we're putting on the field just for the run game? Is that what you're talking about? Well, then the defense is gonna know what we're doing every time that we put them on the fucking field. What are we Oy vey. And the thing is I don't even know if they have a starter fetish. I think it's I think Howie is bringing in good at bringing in good players, or he has been. Vic obviously knows what he's doing with his players on the defensive side of the ball. I don't think that the offensive side of the ball knows what the fuck that they're doing with those players. It's in the Chargers game, right? It's Saquon was actually having a really good first half, right? And the Eagles were moving the ball. We were wasting time. We were bringing, and then you stop playing Saquon. You take him off the field. Why? Because you think he needs rest? Granted, there are times where Saquon needs rest, but in the first half, that dude don't need fucking rest. It's Saquon Barkley. He doesn't need fucking rest in the first half. Jesus Christ. And then for example, it's I think we talked about this the other day, John, which is the Eagles were doing a good job of winning that Week 18 game against the Commanders. Tank Bigsby was going off in that game and was having a phenomenal game, and they pull him midway through the third quarter, and he doesn't get another carry for the rest of the game. And what happens? The Philadelphia Eagles lose. They miss out on the 2 seed. And would that have made a difference? I don't fucking know. Probably not at the end of the inconsistent rate as to which Kevin Patullo was calling plays. Kevin Patullo and Nick Sirianni. Come on. You have AJ Brown running a hitch route. What the fuck? What has this team been doing? What has this team been doing for the past 2 years? Honestly. Why? That is the big question. It's still the fucking question, regardless of the fact that we brought in Sean Mannion and Josh Grizzard, as the 2 new offensive coaches. That is still the question. Why can't we get this passing game going? Again, I go back to, we brought in Kellen Moore. They completely ditched the Kellen Moore playbook after week 4 last year. Kellen Moore, responsible for the passing offense in Dallas, responsible for the top 5 passing offense with the Chargers. And in Philadelphia, you can't get it done. Yeah, okay. John, that's where the case is made, where it could be Jalen Hurts. Right there is where the case is made, where it could be the limitations of Jalen Hurts. I don't like to think so. I don't want to think that way. But I do think, we know what the story was. We know what the story was last year. They scrapped Kellen Moore's playbook and went to a more simplified version, which means they went to Nick Sirianni's playbook and then just ran the ball. So is it going to be any different? I get, we can be excited about the coaching staff changes, and we can get excited about the idea that Sean Mannion has experience with Sean McVay and Matt LaFleur and Kevin O'Connell and Clint Kubiak and all of these guys. But is it going to make a fucking difference at the end of the day? Is it going to make a fucking difference? And we can get excited that Josh Grizzard is going to be the new passing game coordinator. And he has experience at the offensive as an offensive coordinator, and so he'll be able to support Sean Mannion if there's any questions. He'll be able to be that sounding board. You know what I mean? But is it going to change? Is there going to be difference? And so far, the experience and the information and the intel says it's not going to change. And yes, is that a Jalen Hurts thing? I don't know. Is it a Jalen Hurts thing and a Nick Sirianni thing? I don't know. Is it a Nick Sirianni thing? I really think I think it's a little bit of everything, to be honest. It's a little bit of everything, and that's why I'm not opposed to drafting a guy like Garrett Nussmeier. Honestly, I'm not opposed to drafting the LSU quarterback. Not against it. I'm also not against drafting Dante Moore if he falls. Dante Moore out of Oregon. I'm not against it. I'm not against the Philadelphia Eagles drafting a quarterback early. I'm just not. John says, hey, DB, if Dallas leaves in free agency, do you see KC as his destination? I really do. I really do. We talked about that the other day. I think I really do see him going to KC. I think it makes perfect sense. I think it's a perfect destination for Dallas Goedert. Obviously Dallas Goedert was not he doesn't really have much familiarity with Andy Reid, if at all. But I think Dallas Goedert would fit nicely into the Kansas City offense, and I think he would have a great season. Honestly, I think he would have a great season with Patrick Mahomes. He might even have a 1,000-yard season with Patrick Mahomes. Now they're gonna get some guys back as well. Sidney Rice. Or no, not Sidney. Is it Rashid? Is it? I don't fucking know. There's my cat. There's Bisbee. All right. Yeah, is it gonna be? They're gonna get some guys back. I think Hollywood Brown is still on the team. So just adding Dallas Goedert into that offense would make them dangerous again. To be completely honest with you, but Pat is still hurt from what I understand. So it's also gonna be, it's all gonna come down to Patrick Mahomes' recovery as well. So. And what Travis Kelce does, so I think Patrick should definitely, or not Patrick, but Travis should definitely retire. Speaking defense, I hope the 53-man roster is minus Keely Ringo and Howie and Brast must draft corner 2 starter round 1 or round 2. Is Band-Aid Adoree Jackson and Bennett is a lesson learned. Yeah, I do agree. I do agree. There's a couple guys. There's a couple. Hold on a second. There's a couple guys that I've been looking at as far as a possible, as far as possible early round cornerback prospects. The guy out of Clemson, I really like. Let me just go ahead and bring it up so I can. But I do think what they're going to do is I do think that they're going to try and restructure Michael Carter. I think that would be a smart thing to do. Obviously we haven't gotten the best out of. We haven't seen the best out of Michael Carter yet, but he also hadn't been utilized that much after we traded for him. Which, by the way, I go back to that. What did we trade for Michael Carter? John Mechie III. When we traded for John Mechie III, I thought it was a really good trade, actually. John Mechie III, again, an underappreciated, underused wide receiver who played well for the Texans, but he brings a skill set. He brought us. That's what I was excited about, is like he had experience playing with Devontae Smith. And I think he actually had experience playing with Jalen, but even though he wasn't the most well-refined wide receiver, he was a decently refined wide receiver and also brought a skill set to the team that you could utilize in the offense that would have made things a little bit more creative. But what did this team do? No, they didn't. They didn't know how to use him. They used him a couple times on some swing passes. They used him a couple times on some swing passes. You could have called end arounds with him. To be completely honest with you, yeah, the dude out of Clemson that I really like as far as the cornerback prospects are concerned is obviously Avion Terrell. I think that he would be a really decent. I think that he would be a really decent player for us. There's also Jermod McCoy. And I think Mansour Delane is probably going to go a lot earlier than those two than those picks. But Avion Terrell. If we go cornerback round 1, I would love to get a guy like Avion Terrell. So we'll see. My thing about Keely Ringo, and I think this is their one issue with Keely Ringo actually, is he's just so good on special teams, dude. He's just so good on special teams. Like it's hard to cut him for that reason. And same thing with Sidney Brown. Like it's hard to cut Sidney Brown and Keely Ringo because they're both really good on special teams. But yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing. If you're going to keep 5 cornerbacks, let Keely Ringo be the 5th cornerback. If you're going to keep 4 safeties, let Sidney be the 4th safety. And the safety position is one that concerns me more so than the cornerback position, obviously. The safety position concerns me because it's like there's a possibility we lose Marcus Epps and we lose Reed Blankenship. And then who do we have at that point? Like we have Andrew Makuba and we have Sidney Brown. And, we have a couple other guys who were like practice squad players pretty much throughout the year. But like, that's why I think it's important is like, there's going to be some tough decisions made when it comes time to free agency. And so like, we're going to need to make sure that we're making the smart decision. I think the Eagles should try and bring and like I mentioned the other day is like, I think the Eagles should try and bring back Reed Blankenship. If it, I think you could easily bring him back for $8 million a year. I also don't want to see Nakobe Dean go. So, I think that's why the restructures and the extensions, like, I think Howie Roseman is really focused on making sure that those things get done before we hit free agency, because, like I mentioned earlier, it's like if you extend Michael Carter, you're going to save about $6 million. If you extend Jordan Davis, which I'm pretty sure that they're going to do regardless, that might even be the very first thing to get done. You're going to save about $10 million or $9 million or something like that. So like there's about $18 million worth of cap that can be saved if we get a couple of extensions or restructures done. So it's going to be very interesting moving forward. It's going to be very interesting as to see how we can do prior to free agency starting. But I have every bit of faith in Howie when it comes to contracts. He's like a contractual wizard. You know what I'm saying? So like, I don't. He's like Harry Potter when it comes to contracts. So like that's not necessarily something that I'm worried about. But yeah, I don't want Keely Ringo. I don't want Keely Ringo on the field ever again. And I'm surprised. And I honestly, like, as the season went on, like, I'm surprised that went on for as long as it did, because every time he gets on the fucking field, he's a walking yellow flag. He is a walking yellow flag every single time, like from the very first snap, yellow flag. Anyway, good mention of John Mechie. Eagles' lack of ideas for the players was hair pulling. Yeah, I loved that fucking trade. I loved that trade. My brothers, didn't necessarily like that trade. They just thought I was being like crazy about it, like too crazy about it. But I've watched John Mechie. I liked John Mechie coming out of college. Is another. I think he's another Alabama guy, right? Yeah, another Alabama guy. Was really effective in that Texans offense with C.J. Stroud his rookie year. C.J. Stroud's rookie year, where they also had, or maybe it was a year after his rookie year, but they also had Tank Dell. And so on and so forth. So those guys really complemented each other well. And I really thought that when we traded for John Mechie, that he was going to bring a new dimension to the offense. I like, if you guys remember correctly, they thought Jahan Dotson was going to get moved after we traded for John Mechie. So obviously the speculation was there, but then we couldn't do anything with these guys. And that's one of my hopes, right? That's one of my fucking hopes, is that Sean Mannion and Josh Grizzard can get the most out of these guys. I don't want to see Jahan Dotson walk. For that reason. I don't want to see AJ Brown leave for that reason. We have this top tier talent of players, and I really don't want it to be the case that we wasted it with a fucking inept coaching staff. John says, it will break my heart with no Reed B. Gotta keep Reed. Such a great story too. Undrafted rookie free agent, steps in, does an above average job, and then he was one of the bright spots in that. He was one of the bright spots in that 2023 secondary was signing Reed. That was the year he was a rookie, from what I understand. And then the last 2 years of him being in the Vic Fangio defense, he's just gotten better. He's not the most athletic. He's not the most athletic or the quickest, safety in the league. But he plays smart. He reads coverages well, and that's how he gets, the turnovers. He averages at least 3 interceptions a season. That's a lot, honestly, coming from it. I don't know if fans realize this, but that amount of interceptions from the safety position is quite good. It really is. And then he also forces the ball out. So it's and he's a great tackler in the open field. He communicates well with the rest of the secondary, and that includes Quinyon Mitchell. That includes Cooper DeJean. So it's how big of an impact does Reed have on their development as a player and an on-field, signal caller? It's Vic trusts Reed. So it's not like we can just give the reins over to some other guy or draft some other guy and have that guy replace Reed. It's not that simple. What he's brought to the secondary is really invaluable. And I've lived through us trying to replace Brian Dawkins, and I don't want to go through that ever again. Ever. Nakobe is a must keep. Imagine Dean and Blankenship in Dallas joining Christian. I would lose my shit. I would hate that. And that's a real possibility too. That's a real fucking possibility. I don't think that even though I'm really, really worried about it, I don't think that they're going to lose Nakobe. I don't think they're going to let Nakobe walk. I think Nakobe was Howie Roseman was so happy when they were able to get Nakobe Dean. Everybody loves Nakobe. Nakobe's the vocal leader. Nakobe has been a vocal leader since he has been on that Georgia defense. And he is the captain of those guys. He's got a strong mentality. He's got a strong personality, and the defense didn't really start playing with grit until Nakobe came back this past season. And so you know, he's one of my favorite players on the defense. And yeah, I would hate to see him go. I would hate to see him go, especially with the fact that like we don't know how much longer we're gonna get great play out of Zach Bond. Like granted, like I love Zach Bond, but like, and I think he's absolutely all world, and really turned this defense around. But like, we don't know how much longer we're gonna get great play from Zach Bond. We really don't. Nakobe is young. Nakobe is fast. Nakobe is only getting better, and the defense looks up to Nakobe. So like, yeah, I would hate. And honestly, like I don't think it would cost us that much to keep Nakobe just due to the injuries. Like I don't know, maybe 6-7 mil. I like, I don't know. They were willing to just give him what they gave what's his face, the former linebacker from the Buccaneers. Just give him that, but on a longer term. I forgot his name. Devin White. Yeah, Devin White. Just give him what Devin White was fucking making for the entire season. 3 year. What was it? 3 years, eight, or what was it? A year for $8 million. Just give Nakobe 3 years for $24 million and call it a day. $8 million. Or do whatever you got. I don't like, do whatever you got to do to keep Nakobe. Do whatever you got to do to keep Nakobe. Obviously, keep it reasonable because you still got Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. But I'm not worried about the defense. Obviously, I don't want to lose those players. But here's the question: who would you rather keep? If it were one or the other, who would it be? Would it be Nakobe or would it be Reed? Nakobe or Reed? I think I would rather keep Nakobe, if I got to be honest with you. That way we can pair him up with Jahad Campbell for years to come. I would just hate losing Reed. But I think that's the other thing too, is like I think that Howie understands that like the money is about to shift. So I think he understands that like they're gonna try and pay some of these players on defense, and then go back to the drawing board and draft heavy on offense in the draft. So, I trust Howie. I trust Howie. And that might mean, honestly, guys, that they draft a playmaker, an offensive playmaker early in the first round. Or early as the first round, maybe the first or second round. And obviously I think you guys can probably assume which position I'm talking about, but probably like wide receiver. Like you have AJ getting older. Devontae is still fairly young, but AJ's definitely getting older. So, and all depends on like whether or not you can restructure that deal or not. But guys, please subscribe, please hit the notification bell just to keep up with any updates. Please leave a comment in the comment box, and I will certainly get down to it at some point throughout the day. Or go ahead and leave a chat in the live chat, and we can get to talking about whatever you want to talk about when it comes to the Birds. So yeah, obviously there's been coaching changes that have been made. Obviously, as we know, the former quarterbacks coach for the Packers hired as our offensive coordinator. That would be Sean Mannion, obviously, that I'm talking about. And then also the former Buccaneers offensive coordinator, Josh Grizzard, was hired as our pass game coordinator. Two potentially really, really good moves. Depends on how well they work together, one. And secondly, can they get the most out of the players moving forward? Can they bring consistency and creativity to this offense? Will the players believe in what these guys are selling? Also, however, what I do want to ask, on top of those on top of that, which is, do you guys foresee any other offensive staff changes? Do you guys foresee any other offensive staffing changes coming within the week? You know, are we gonna hire a new quarterbacks coach? Are we gonna hire a new run game coordinator? Are we gonna hire a new wide receivers coach? You know, are we gonna get rid of Aaron Moorhead? Are we gonna get rid of Scott Leffler? Are we gonna, you know, is it true? Are the reports true that Jeff Stoutland's run game coordinator responsibilities have been removed and he's just strictly going back to offensive line coach? These are all things that wouldn't surprise me. It's going to be really interesting to see just how much autonomy they decided to give Sean Mannion, and see what happens from, you know, from there. Because it's possible, like if they've given him full autonomy, if they've given him full autonomy, then he's probably going to want to bring in his own coaches, and probably and that would completely revamp the offensive staff. That would completely revamp the offensive staff and have a higher chance of really revamping the offense as well. Jonathan says, is Sebastian Castro on Eagles practice squad? Same school as Cooper DeJean, Iowa, or is he with the Steelers? I have brain fart. Want Castro with Coop. Sebastian Castro? Why does that name sound familiar? Yeah, Sebastian Castro is with the Steelers. Castro's with the Steelers. But you know, who knows? Who knows? Well, they'll bring in they'll bring in competition for sure. You know, and again, that's why I say, like, I'm not necessarily worried about the defense. I don't think I don't see Hy Roseman making the same mistake that he made as far as the depth is concerned, with the defense this season. And that's another reason why I think it's really important that they find a way to keep Jalen Phillips as well. There's a lot of that's the thing. There's a lot of, when it comes to free agents, there's a lot of questions. Are we going to be able to keep Reed? Are we going to be able to keep N'Kobe? Are we going to be able to resign Jalen Phillips? We have to extend Jordan Davis. So, like, we're obviously not going to be able to keep all of them, unfortunately. I wish we could, but, you know, I honestly think Jalen Phillips is probably going to be their number one. You know, just the way that he kind of like changed the dynamic of the defensive line after we traded for him, how quickly he was able to do that. I think he's going to be their number one because, you know, again, you know, great pass rushers don't fall off of trees either. Sometimes they do, but John says I would keep Reed. I have to keep Reed with his friend Coop. Yeah, that's true. That's true. They are like best friends, aren't they? My thing is like it comes down to how much of a pay cut is Reed, not pay cut, but, like, you know, is he willing to come back on a cheaper deal is the thing, you know, and what's his value going to be throughout the league? John says, I think a new run game coordinator is coming. I do too. That actually might come through first, I think. Just because obviously the early reports were that the reports earlier this week were that Jeff Stoutland was losing run game coordinator responsibility. and that he's still willing to stay, obviously. Um, so it's just a matter of who they're going to bring in. Who are they going to bring in, and is it going to work well? And I assume they're going to bring in some guy, somebody that they have experience with, right? Sean Mannion is, so that run game in Green Bay was good, was really good. So we'll just have to see who it's going to be, and I hope it's going to be good. I hope the best. I hope for the best. Do I have a little bit of cynicism towards these hirings? I do. Um, I understand that there's a lot more people that are excited about it than I am, but like, I'm just trying to pay homage to the fact that like this guy hasn't called plays before. But I hope for I again like I hope it all works out. I hope it all works out. I hope for the best, you know. Um, because I really don't want to see Jalen leave, and I don't necessarily want to see Nick leave. You know what I mean? Um, this is a goal. It's a golden era in Eagles football. It's a golden era in Eagles football. The fact that we're winning so much, and we've made 2 Super Bowls in the last 5 years. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. In fact, there's only in the last 10 years, I think it's been the Rams, the 49ers, the Eagles, uh, and Seattle was the only. I think that was the only other team that was different, and that was obviously this year. Um, so yeah, that's which is crazy. Which is crazy. Like it's pretty much consistently been either the Rams, San Francisco, or the Eagles over the last 10 years representing the NFC. And then it's been like, I think the AFC, it's been like the Chiefs, the, yeah, the Chiefs, the Patriots, and somebody else. I don't know. I don't remember, but it's crazy. It's crazy how similar the pattern had been over the last couple 10 years. It just doesn't happen. Um, so yeah, this is a golden era in Eagles football, and so like I obviously want to see as many people stay intact as possible. Uh, I don't want Jalen and I don't want Nick to go because I can't tell you for sure that like we're not performing at our best level because of one of them. And so like taking that, and I don't want to take that chance. I don't want to take that chance because like if we get rid of one of them and then we stop winning, like what do you say? We'd be in a Patriots slash Belichick situation where you remove Tom Brady from the Patriots and the Patriots suck for like 4 years. And, Tom Brady immediately changes life in Tampa Bay. So, um, but yeah, a new run game coordinator. Do you have any thoughts as to who you want the run game coordinator to be? I think I've heard some names. You know what's crazy? Has the Arizona Cardinals like have they hired a head coach yet? I think that's absolutely insane to me that there's a ton of like significant like coaching vacancies still that haven't been filled. Yeah, there's no real reports yet as to like who on whether or not the Eagles are going to bring in a new run game coordinator, but I do feel you. I do think that they are going to get something. I do think that they're going to get something. The national media hasn't really liked the Sean Mannion hiring for the most part. They really haven't. I think Jason Kelsey came out and criticized the Sean Mannion hiring. Stephen A. Smith criticized the Sean Mannion hiring. Quite a few other people have criticized the Sean Mannion hiring, and that's just due to the lack of experience. But like there's a ton of hope. There's a ton of optimism. So we'll just have to see how it all plays out. I'm gonna try and remain as hopeful and optimistic as I possibly can. But I'm glad that it finally concluded, for sure. I'm glad that it finally concluded. I think it was 18 days, 18 fucking days of this offensive coordinator search. And I think that the reason for that, obviously, I think the reason for that is because they had their sights set on Brian Dable or Josh McDaniel. And then when they realized they weren't going to get any of those guys, they decided to cast out a wide net. And once they casted out the wide net, that's when things got a little lengthy. Things were uncertain. Howie was uncertain. Nick Sirianni was uncertain. Jeffrey Lurie was probably just like, uncertain as well. Everybody was uncertain. And so, like, they obviously didn't want to make the wrong decision. Now, the other thing too is like, if you want to look at it this way, ironically, is like the last time this organization hired a former Green Bay quarterback coach, his name was Andy Reid, and he went on to have great success in his future as a head coach. So a little bit of ties there, a little bit of an interesting nugget. So we'll just have to see. I'm intrigued for multiple reasons. Does this guy do such a good job that we do look to move on from Nick Sirianni? Because we don't want to lose this guy. Or does he do a bad job and we look to move on from Nick Sirianni, and then we still look to keep this guy? So there's a few things. I mean, I'm sure, like, yeah, he's gonna be under the microscope. Sean Mannion's gonna be under the microscope. I mean, this is Philadelphia. These are Philadelphia Eagle fans. These are the Philadelphia Eagles, the city of brotherly love, high expectations. He's gonna need to come in. He's gonna need to have success. We're gonna it's gonna need to be better. It's gonna need to be good. But we will see what happens. I will be on live tomorrow. We will talk a little bit more about player profiles, draft prospects, free agency, things of that nature. And then obviously we'll throw in, any coaching nuggets here and there that we possibly need to, any minor news stuff. But yeah, if there is an update that comes in throughout the day, and it's in regards to any hirings or any big changes or anything like that, I'll obviously throw up an emergency pod, and we'll get to talking about it. But other than that, I appreciate everybody that joined in today. I hope that everybody has a beautiful rest of their Saturday. Happy January 31st. One love. This is DB Talking Now. DB Talking Birds. DB Talking Philadelphia Eagles. Go Birds, baby.